Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News, and sorry about no trivia last night. Well, yeah, I won't go there. But we're here tonight, and we got trivia after the news. So if you're waiting on it, come on back. If not, stick around. We got some great news. One of the first things I mentioned to William was this drone maker DJI. Sues the Pentagon over Chinese military listings. And this China-based DJI sues the U.S. Defense Department on Friday for adding the drone maker to his list of companies, allegedly working with Beijing military, says the designation is wrong and has caused the company significant financial harm. Now, being placed on the list represents a warning to the U.S. entities and companies about the national security risks of conducting business with them. Now, the lawsuit says because the Defense Department, unlawful and misguided decision, it has lost business deals and been stigmatized as a national security threat and has been banned from contracting with multiple federal government agencies. The company added U.S. and international customers and have terminated existing contracts with DJI and refused to enter into new ones. So the Defense Department and the Pentagon didn't respond on this. They said they're not going to, the Defense Department did not engage with the company over this designation for more than 16 months. So they had no alternative but to seek relief in the federal court. So now many major Chinese firms are on the list, including an aviation company, a memory chip maker, China Mobile, and energy company CNOOC. So William, I think go ahead.
A bunch of companies here in the United States that have been bought by China, and in Europe. If you fly a civilian piston airplane here in the United States, your number one choice is likely to be Lycoming. It's now owned by China. The big, large drones that are used by a lot of militaries use Lycoming aircraft engines. They're very reliable. They're fairly inexpensive, in the $30,000 range. And now the United States is having to scramble and create an alternative to Lycoming. This is kind of the same thing that's happening now with DJI. If you're a content maker on the internet or YouTube, whatever, chances are if you're doing visuals while you're outside, DJI is your number one choice for a drone, for a light drone.
Well, you know, I had someone ask me, where did this start? This started with the free trade agreement, where we started. You know, we could build companies in many places, and so could other countries. And that was signed in by Bill Clinton in the 90s. Now, it didn't become a problem until 2022 when Congress started uncovering that in between the Clinton, Bush, Obama, and then Biden, they started more and more bringing China in because it was a cheaper product.
And they gave them both a developing, they're under the World Bank, and China's considered a developing nation. They have that designation, as well as they have been given the designation by the president. I believe it was Obama, most favored trade status. So at the same time, we have companies here in the United States just clamoring, literally, as we speak, clamoring to do business in China. They've found, as far as national security goes, that these small drone makers, when they download their videos and whatnot, that information gets sent back across the Pacific, and it's a threat to the United States. You fly it over a military site, near a military site. These have very good optics on them. They're good. They're well stabilized. They can fly out like 1.5 miles. They can climb quite high. You'd be surprised. And they're plentiful and cheap. And even Ukraine buys them by, the container load to use in war fighting. So you can take the control system out of a little DJI drone and hook it into a fly-by-wire aircraft, and you have a flight operation system. So all the electronics there, stabilization, all that business, it's miniaturized, but they can be used to create very great and grave damage.
Yeah. Okay. The biggest, I think, of the news today, though, was that a drone strike was launched from Lebanon towards the Prime Minister Netanyahu's house north of Tel Aviv this morning. Now, Netanyahu was not there at the time. No casualties were reported, but his house, his home has now been exposed. Now, William, you got on the assassination attempts, because I think this is what this was about.
So in the war there, one of the, initially, as that war began, Israel engaged in what's called in military parlance decapitation operation, meaning denying Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, at any possible opportunity of leadership. And they've reciprocated. Luckily, the drone didn't explode because I sent pictures of the house and it's still there. So it made it through a window without detonating. So that's the good and the bad of it. But they're going. As soon as you engage in something like that, you can expect reciprocity, and that's a diplomatic term of if you do something, your neighbors are likely to do the exact same thing. It's just tit for tat,
Now the other
That,
thing, they had just the Israeli command had discovered three hospitals with Hezbollah bases underneath. And so in the last few days, they've killed at least 50 people. That's according to the Associated Press. And they said three hospitals are now under fire. The ministry says as a deadly weeks long siege of um, some of the refugee camps have been holding. That's where they pull in these missiles right into the refugee camps to fire their missiles to get struck back. But they did announce that they had three hospitals under fire due to underground Hezbollah bases.
so in Arabia, you have to keep in mind they see the West as being weak because we respect the lives of civilians. They simply don't. And so we have to expect that at every opportunity, they're going to put their bases in the places we're least likely to strike first.
Oh yeah. Well, they did that up in Syria too.
Right.
When they
That's
were going through ISIS and Hezbollah on Syria. Syrian girl was saying, she was even pointing out one hospital they used to re-blow up over and over again because they never did get anything above the surface or anything below the surface. I'm sorry. And there was an underground bunker under there, but they never did find it, but they kept blowing it up because they kept getting signals from there. So they blew up a hospital three times and it was emptied after the first. The second one pretty much had it to rubble, and the third took it to the ground before they found the underground base. So
the United States hit Yemen, three major bunker complexes deep underground with what they call a massive ordnance penetrator. It's basically a 15,000-pound JDAM that buries itself 200 feet into the ground, and then uses a very high explosive, something that's much greater than nitrocellulose, which is incredibly dangerous. And even if they don't penetrate the bunker itself, the blast will cause such a jar of the ground. Believe it or not, the ground beneath us is actually kind of plastic. And so they can create a shock wave through that it will just take anything in a bunker and just slap it against the ceiling very hard and destroy things. So, yeah, Israel doesn't have JDAMs, but the United States does have JDAMs, and we've started to employ them over ships being shot at in the Red Sea now.
So Taiwan
Israel's
is
likely to start using them.
yeah, and it's far from over, folks. If they're going back to look at some hospitals again, and found the underground bases, and then also they're still having to fight, telling the refugees to leave, just get out of Gaza. And as much as they keep trying to move them out, Hezbollah keeps them in. So I want to kind of move on to Taiwan because they found this very important, that the Penghu Defense Command plans its first ever nighttime fire drills for next week. Usually it's just exercises, but these are live fire drills, they say. Uh, they they last week on the let's see, 14th, I believe, is they sent quite a few, 125 airplane, and
yeah, it was reported reported. I
Remember,
saw
we
reports of
on
120.
one of our last shows, we reported they, just blocked it all off. Well, they said they were doing um, exercises, but they had the fishing vessels around. So, William, I think that's why the fishing guys got in on this one. Um, Now, what they want to do is they want to do another exercise, but on the islands, the Strait Islands, and they're going to do live fire drills, but they're going to be doing it between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. According to this, they said that's kind of like the normal commute for most people, and seeing live fire drills could cause concern with the people in Taiwan. And so they say the projectiles could reach an altitude of 5,000 feet. So it's
The
they're
live fire that they're talking about, howitzer type rounds, like we use the 155 a lot. So they have a range of about 20 miles. So they'll probably be firing in the ocean towards Taiwan, but they do get quite high. To get the maximum distance out of a projectile, you have to fire it at a 45 degrees. So you want it to climb as far as it can, to go as far as it can.
yeah.
Trivia.
Now, no, in Mexico, boy, this is something. Mexico newspaper offices are hit by gunfire with Sinaloa gang or terrorists. I say, I can't call these people gangs because they kill people. They're terrorists.
So
But hold on a second. So they were rival factions of the cartel, and they have been staging bloody battles against these not only the stations but the reporters on scene. They said they found 4 bullet impacts on the building's walls. More gunfire hit newspaper vehicles parked in front of the offices. So they did a drive-by shooting, is pretty much what they did. And telling them that drug lords El Mayo were apprehended, though, after they were caught flying out of there uh, in a hurry. So I tell you, William, they're
in the last couple of days, they've had a mayor in that area was stabbed to death in his own home, and another mayor who was decapitated and left out for everybody to see. So they're terrorists.
yeah.
They have a brand new presidency in Mexico right now. They just went into office, and I guess she's the first lady president of Mexico. But the previous one used the military as basically his armed security, and he kept a lid on things as much as he could. She, however, hasn't really organized her administration yet, and so there's going to be a little bit of a power vacuum. We're going to see some violence.
Well, that happens every time they get a new president, because quite a few just submitted to the cartels. And then, we had a couple of them that worked with Trump. But, when you look back at when Trump was trying to work with Mexico, they would only go so far and then they would back off. And to me, that says the cartel is in control. And you can't really, they're saying even Cancun, William, is overrun. It's just being taken over. And they take over.
You used to be able to go to Cancun as long as you stayed at the beach
the
hotels
resorts.
And you didn't travel out specifically at night. You just stayed close to the hotels right there in town. You would be okay, but that's not the case anymore.
And it's almost like what they're doing here, with the gang members that come up into these small towns. Because oddly enough, Vermont is complaining about the gangs or the cartel or even terrorists taking over a small town of Burlington in Vermont. And they said it's so overrun and it's so crime ridden now. They're starting to back away from this administration due to this was a Bernie Sanders area, and they cut the police, they cut down the ICE issues that was up there. They just cut everything out, and that's what they do down in Mexico. They just slowly take over town after town after town, and I think that's what they're doing with our sanctuary cities.
Is a really beautiful, picturesque town. I could see why they'd want to go
there. Well, they don't want them up there. The politicians do, but the people of Vermont don't.
Right.
But you know, we're moving into a whole different socialism type of movement.
Well,
I mean, that's a whole different story. But you know, it's government control and what the government puts where they want to put things and put people or cut the police force. They're going to do it. That's part of socialism and control. Government
if you don't want these folks in your state, shut down all the bus lines and shut down the airports.
Close out the hotels.
That's right.
Yeah, they're not helping our vets one bit. The other thing was Zelensky's back in the news. He needs more money, folks. Yeah, we've given him billions and billions, and he says he can get the soldiers. And the reason he's doing this is because North Korea has got soldiers on the ground fighting Ukraine. So what they need to do, according to Zelensky, is build up. He could do the soldiers, but he needs more money from the United States to be able to get military equipment and ammunitions. Good grief.
Well, we've discussed this in, so many times that.
Well, he's asking again.
This is not going to end well.
Oh, now you said there was a desertion of a bunch of them over there.
Well, they've had some low-level servicemen that have deserted in protest. Not just deserted and disappeared, but deserted in protest. Returned back to, home and began protesting as well. So they just had one arrested yesterday. So things are starting to come apart at the seams.
And
Europe's pretty much done with them. Germany is no longer.
Yeah.
Eric Schultz is no longer sending any more aid to Ukraine, and they're upset.
And NATO is even, William NATO is even starting to very concerned. I want to say it's very concerned because these European countries and Germany are all saying, you know what? And I think, no. I think this has gone on long enough. I think that's what they thought it was going to end with NATO.
They're very upset because they're being forced into an arms race, number one. And number two, they want to collapse their economies for the new world order. And they can't do both at the same time. I don't know what to tell them.
Yeah. Now you had something on India.
So there's been some companies that have transferred their operations from China to India, and China has put out the word to counsel India that it may not be in their best interest to be engaging in such activities. And I think that's going to fall on a deaf ear because India and China have been squabbling in the Himalayas for quite some time now, even getting down to the point of throwing, rocks at each other in hand-to-hand combat. So
that amazed me when I heard we did that story of probably what, a year ago, that they went to emptying out all their weapons and everything they possibly had, and then they went to throwing rocks and machine parts. Then they went to all out fistfights. I mean, that is definitely a war right there. It shows how tough India is not going to back down from China. They're just not going to do it.
Well, China has a bigger military right now and they don't really have a bigger industrial base. India is becoming quite an industrial base. Have lower level technology, but they're on their way. And they have a population that's as great as China. And they don't have the problems with major typhoons and whatnot regularly destroying their cities. So India is going to be a contest for China. There's just no doubt about it. As long as Western nations are willing to go to the ends of the earth to find the cheapest labor, India is going to be, number 2 on the list.
Yeah. Well, okay, William, I'm going to cut the show, and we're going to get ready in 30 minutes. Come on back, folks, for some great trivia. I put it together yesterday, and I'm ready to do it today, and I know you guys are going to have a lot of fun. So with that, thank you, William. I really appreciate William just jumping in and helping me out, because sometimes I don't give him much notice. So, but we're going to wing through this. So, all right, come on back, and I thank y'all for watching, and subscribe, share, and like, and hit that like button, the thumbs up. And tell everybody, your friends and family, to come on back in 30 minutes and we'll have some trivia. All right, folks, I thank you for watching, and I thank William. And we will see you in a few minutes. Bye-bye, folks. Okay. Get ready for some trivia. Girls tonight. Oh, I know. I got it all. Okay.